Hey everyone, Ryan here, and I have the new Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra in black color, and this video you're gonna find out if this phone is for you or not. In terms of visual design, honestly not much has changed since the last model, but we have a slightly less curved display. Thank you, Samsung. Listen, I don't care about curved displays that much, but a few months ago I realized how much of a difference it can make when you have a flat design, especially when your phone is shipped with a stylus pen. And so it feels a little less annoying because you won't go over the edge as much when writing something. This phone obviously runs the latest Android, which is Android 13, but also the latest One UI version, which is 5.1 that you won't see on other phones as of yet. Now, it was previously rumored that the S23 Ultra will have a peak brightness of more than 2000 nits, but like many rumors that turn out to be false information, and the peak brightness is actually 1750 nits. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's still very bright, and in fact now the screen adapts better to different lighting conditions. And we obviously have a screen refresh rate of 120 Hz, and it's actually adaptive, meaning it can vary between very low numbers up to 120 Hz. Samsung says it ranges from around 1 to 120 Hz. The more static the content, the lower the refresh rate. So the question is, how dynamic is it? Meaning, what are different values depending on what things we do? And it seems like, just like the Galaxy Z Fold 4 that I tested, there are only a few presets, a set of numbers or refresh rates that this phone cycles through depending on what you do. So if I'm browsing the web, this is the number I'm getting. If I'm watching something, this is the actual refresh rate. And if I'm looking at the phone screen, this is the number. But once the action includes some kind of scrolling or swiping, whether it's browsing the web or not, then I get that 120 Hz refresh rate or peak refresh rate. But then when does it ever get to 1 Hz? I guess maybe if I take a look at the always on display, then it'll be 1 Hz? Nope, it's still not 1 Hz. In fact, it's 24 Hz. So that was a real world test of the refresh rate, and I just wanted to show you that this dynamic range is not really flowing from one to another, and it's more like a set of presets that it jumps to depending on what is being done. So anyways, now is a good time to talk about gaming on this phone. In my test playing Call of Duty and a couple more games for a little over an hour, I had a really good experience both in terms of the actual performance of the games and the thermals too. I mean, this is such a great thing for me to experience because the last thing you want is to buy a flagship phone and then experience bad thermals, which has been something quite normal for some phones, including last year's version of this phone, the S22 Ultra, especially the Exynos model. Oh, and if you didn't know, for a long time we've been having this issue with Samsung phones where certain parts of the world would get the Snapdragon version and other parts of the Exynos model, and that was infuriating. And you won't believe what happened next. I made a rant video about this with like less than 300 views, and I guess one of them was the CEO of Samsung, because guys, now everybody's treated equally and we all get to have the same processor on our phones. All Galaxy S23 Ultras in the world are shipped with a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is super powerful, super capable, and in fact it's an overclocked version of the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which means it's even faster. And this new CPU, together with a better and bigger cooling system, is why I've been having such a good time playing these games without experiencing major thermal and throttling issues, not to mention the 41% improvement of the GPU. That's a big fat number for an improvement, and it supports ray tracing as well. And by the way, if you weren't paying attention, I also included the live refresh rate of this screen while playing games, so you can go back and check out those stats if you want to. I just wanted to emphasize that the phone still gets warm, as it should, which is normal. I'm just saying that I haven't experienced any overheating or throttling issues yet. And here's a performance benchmark for those of you interested in these kinds of numbers. But since I was recording the screen, I thought it might have skewed the results, and apparently it did a little. So here's a second one without running anything else in the background. Okay, before I talk about the cameras, let's get a few things out of the way. So the storage on this can be 256 gigabytes, 512 gigabytes, or 1 terabyte. I'm really glad that there is no 128 gigabyte option, because that's just ridiculously low for a flagship phone. Honestly, it's probably only good if it's a demo unit. And speaking of demo units, if you go to a local store to check out this phone in person, you might see that the spec sheet mentions a 4K resolution of the display, but if you have like really good eyes, you might notice that these pixels are not as sharp. And you'd be right, because by default it's not enabled and you have to turn it on yourself. Other than that, the RAM can be 8 or 12 gigabytes. 8 is plenty for most people, And in terms of storage, I recommend 512 gigabytes, especially if you don't change your phone every year or even every couple years. And then the really tough Gorilla Glass Victus 2 is also a really good choice for a phone this big and this heavy. But let's not forget about the battery life. I mean, it's great to see that the capacity has at least remained the same as last year's model, which is 5000 milliamp hours. But I don't think I can justify how good or bad it is or make any claims until, I've done a thorough test. But I can say that I'm very optimistic about it for two reasons. One is that the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 processor is very power efficient, and the other is that the cooling chamber is now much bigger than before. Having said that, when I tested the battery capacity or the actual value, the capacity of the battery was sitting at 4855 milliamp hours. So not exactly 5000, but quite close. You might get a different value on your phone than mine if you test it though. Okay, so this is not really a phone. It's a camera that you can use to make calls. It's got really good cameras and it features a 200 megapixel lens. It's not the first 200 megapixel camera on a phone, and it's definitely not the best camera for everyone and every situation, and it comes with its own caveats. So why don't we start with a moonshot, because that's what this phone is famous for. You got a 200 megapixel lens and you can zoom 100 times to take pictures of the moon, right? Well, not exactly. You see, this is a moonshot at 100 times zoom with an aspect ratio of 4:3, and it only uses a 12 megapixel camera. The size of the file is less than a megabyte. And this is from the same place but uses 50 megapixels to take this picture, and it's only 10x zoom, and the size of the file is 8 megapixels. And this is again same place and it uses the 200 megapixel lens with only 10x zoom again, and the size of the file is 26 megabytes, and all use the 4:3 aspect ratio. My point is that you can't have that 100 times zoom with the wide angle, aka the 200 megapixel lens. The 50 megapixel lens also uses the wide angle lens, and so again you can't use the 100 times zoom, and you're only limited to 6 times zoom. And what's interesting is how much difference in saturation and hue there is between the 50 megapixel and 200 megapixel versions. So to sum up, if I wasn't clear, with the wide angle lens you're only limited to 4:3 aspect ratio or 3:4 depending on how you're holding the phone. So you can't use 16:9 to take, for example, real wide pictures in 200 megapixels. And by the way, you can take way better pictures of the moon than what I showed you if you do it right. Mine was done during the day and it was handheld. You're definitely gonna need a tripod and maybe a little bit of post-processing. And to be fair, I think just the camera itself needs a dedicated video, so subscribe and we'll see. But here's one more example for you guys. I'll show you 3 pictures. They're shot in 12, 50 and 200 megapixels. Can you guess which is which? I'll give you a second. What if I zoom in now? Well, now it gets easier, but here it is. You can see that with 200 megapixels, you get a lot more details, but taking great pictures is one thing, taking great videos is another thing. So the S23 Ultra features an 8K camera. The S22 Ultra was also shipped with an 8K camera, but the difference was that with the S22 Ultra, you could only shoot 8K in 24 frames per second, and together with a very bad dynamic range and colors, you'd end up with a terrible footage. And I used it for some of my videos and I hated those and I just stopped using 8K. But now you get 30 frames per second, which is much smoother, and the dynamic range seems better as well. This means you can actually use it in real life when there's some kind of movement. And what you're seeing is an example of the 8K footage with the maximum zoom. And here's an example of a 4K footage in 30 FPS while testing the zoom. You can see how the cameras switch and there's a slight difference in color and details. But I don't know if you can see, there is also some kind of artifact here that was interesting to see. In terms of content consumption, nothing has changed since the last model, and this beast is still fantastic for watching YouTube videos, Netflix, etc. The downside is that, well, it's pretty heavy to hold.
Hey guys, I'm Ryan. So there is a great feature that this watch has that Galaxy Watch users might take for granted. So when I want to correct something, I can just use the virtual bezel to move the cursor to where I want to.
And the speakers also sound great with minimal distortion. Personally, I don't think I'd ever crank it up all the way, but it's great to hear, or not to hear, a lot of distortion at the highest amplitude. So, did I forget something? Of course, the S Pen. Well, even if you're not a power user and you're an average user of this phone, the S Pen can come in handy. Say you want to fill out a form and sign a document, it makes things really easy. But also you can just jot down ideas and thoughts very fast, because as soon as you pull out the pen, you can start writing. No need to unlock your phone or anything like that. Then it gets saved in the Notes app. And if you use any of Samsung native apps for drawing or taking notes, then you'll get the lowest latency of, I believe, 2.8 milliseconds if I'm not mistaken. So what do I really think of it, and should you really buy it? Well, probably a lot of folks will tell you that this is barely an upgrade and not worth buying if you already have a phone like the Galaxy S22 Ultra. And I partly agree with that, but at the same time, I don't think it's totally crazy to upgrade from your S22 Ultra to this one, and I have a couple reasons for that. First is that the CPU is now much better, much more efficient, and we have a better cooling system. So if you're a power user, you're going to benefit from that directly. But also the other thing is that the S23 series are priced really well this time. And so if you trade in your S22 Ultra, then it's worth it even more, especially if you didn't finance your old phone or it's all paid off. And if you have anything older than the S21 Ultra, I think it's definitely worth it. Again, especially if you're a power user or you need a better camera. Because otherwise, Samsung phones from a few years ago were pretty good and they can probably last you a few more years. I still have an older Galaxy phone that I use on a daily basis. But if you decide to buy one, this is really the color I'd recommend. Just like the S22 Ultra, it's an exclusive model, so go check it out.